No ancient god is more well known in the age of the Marvel Cinematic Universe than Thor, the Asgardian, Avenger, and the god of thunder. But here's the thing. The actual Norsemen of antiquity might be annoyed if they could see how little Chris Hemsworth's portrayal of the figure matches the real Thor from Norse mythology. At an oversight, Marvel Comics have done a pretty good job blending Norse mythology into their world, even some of the strange elements you may not anticipate, like redhead, the talking squirrel god who resides in the World Tree. Although there are undoubtedly a few alterations. After all, producing a superhero who can collaborate with Captain America to take on Doctor Doom is exceptionally different from the process of a character developing via mythology and beliefs. So here are the aspects of Thor's Norse mythology that Marvel altered. Number 1. Thor isn't just the god of thunder. Everyone knows Thor is the god of thunder. And one of his most significant character arcs in Thor, Ragnarok, involves him comprehending the implications of his status. And as far as MCU fans are concerned, the only thing he is the god of is thunder. On the other hand, the Thor from Norse mythology has many more roles to play than only bringing up lightning and thunder. He is also the deity of the tides, good weather, and good harvests. Calling to him may result in a military triumph, health protection, or fertility. Oddly, Thor is also referred to be the god of oak trees, and most of his shrines were built from oak wood. Number 2. Thor is a redhead. His hair color is the most evident visual distinction between Marvel's Thor and the original character. The Odinson who hangs out with the Avengers is well known for being blonde, to the point where some of his comrades have dubbed him Goldilocks when they're feeling bold enough to make fun of a man who could break mountains with his magic hammer. However, the original figure is frequently seen with red hair and a matching beard. Why this change? That's never been explained, but it's easy to assume that it has to do with the costume design and the printing process of the time. As seen by his blue and yellow outfit and long red cloak, the early Thor tales were Marvel's version of Superman. If he had less red hair, it would have blended in with the cape, confusing the visual and making it a lot less striking than the contrast of the yellow hair. Number 3. Loki isn't his brother. No other figure has a stronger connection to Thor than Loki, who is both his adoptive brother and frequent foe. According to Marvel Comics legend, Loki was nurtured in Asgard, alongside Odin's biological son after being kidnapped as a youngster from the frost giant Loki. Unfortunately, this story isn't accurate. None of the founding texts of Norse mythology mention a family connection between Thor and Loki. They only become friends and regularly went on trips together after they met later in life due to Loki's connection to Odin. Without a doubt, they did not grow up together. Although Loki was indeed the child of a giant named Loki, Odin did not adopt him. Instead, the two were just allies. Number 4. Mjolnir. Worthiness is the quality that most characterizes Thor in both Marvel Comics and the MCU. One must demonstrate the worthiness of the might of Thor to wield the powerful hammer Mjolnir, and those who have succeeded are few. Even the god of thunder had to strive for 1,000 years before he finally got the ability. However, the Mjolnir of antiquity lacked such specifications. Although it was a magic mallet, anybody could pick it up. However, utilizing it required some expertise and specific tools. The MCU version of Thor has never had to worry about losing his hammer, although Thor had it snatched by a giant on at least one occasion. The real Mjolnir also had specific other skills, such as the ability to contract and fit in Thor's pocket. Number 5. Mjolnir isn't his only weapon. The Thor most people are familiar with needs his dependable hammer Mjolnir to save the world. However, the real Norse god of thunder had an enormous collection of magical weapons. Thor had to wear a unique set of gloves called Jarnglifar to properly wield Mjolnir and have it returned to his hand when he tossed it. This came about as a consequence of yet another traditional Loki practical joke, resulting in the hammer's handle being too short. Thor also needed to put on a supernatural belt called Mjolnir, which was thought to increase his power double to function at his best as a protector god. Number 6. Hela isn't Thor's sister. The main character of Thor, Ragnarok, and his brother Loki learn that Hela, the goddess of death, was their elder sister who has been imprisoned throughout the film. In the ancient account of the Norse afterlife, Hela does indeed rule over Hel, but she is Loki's daughter rather than Odin's, so Thor and Hela are not linked at all, considering that there is no relationship between Loki and Thor in actual mythology. Far from being Loki's lone child, Hela has other siblings. She, the world serpent Jormungandr, and the giant wolf Fenrir were the offspring of a union between Loki and the giant Angrboda. He also gave birth to Sleipnir, an 8-legged horse that later belonged to Odin. Number 7. Thor and his friends aren't called Asgardians. Any MCU fan would characterize Thor as Asgardian, which seems like an appropriate name for someone coming from Asgard. However, the Marvel team totally came up with that name on its own. Thor and his fellow sky gods are referred to as the Aesir in the older versions of Norse mythology. This is different from the Vanir, a rival group of sky gods with whom the Aesir periodically fights. In addition, the term Asgardian might be problematic when used about the actual lore because not all Asgardians are Aesir. Loki, for example, is not an Aesir, and not all Aesir reside in Asgard. Number 8. Thor has 3 brothers. The tight bond between Thor and Loki in the Marvel Cinematic Universe can be attributed to the fact that they're each other's only siblings, that they are aware of at least. In real Norse mythology, we now know that they're not even connected. Yet, this does not imply that Thor is without brothers. Most sources concur that Odin had at least 4 sons: Thor, Balder, Vali, and Vidar, with various mothers. Even if it's plausible that Tyr, Hermod, and Heimdall were just sons of Odin metaphorically, other accounts cite a much broader list that contains their names. Number 9. Thor is half giant. When figuring out the reality of the god of thunder's ancestry, it's crucial to understand that the frost giants, or Jotnar, with whom Thor typically battles, weren't enormous in Norse mythology. Thor's parents are Odin and Freya in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In the Old Norse texts, the goddess Vanir did, in fact, give Odin numerous sons, but not Thor. Instead, he is the product of a relationship between Odin and Jord, a normal-sized giant better characterized as an earth goddess. In some tellings, including the lore of Marvel Comics, Thor's mother is the literal embodiment of the earth itself, Gaia. Number 10. Odin. In the comic books, Odin, Thor and Loki's wise, loving father, strives to govern Asgard reasonably and peacefully. The Marvel Odin would have his ass kicked if he crossed up with the Norse mythological Odin. In his initial form, Odin was a war god who didn't give a damn about peace, justice, or the rule of law. In contrast, Anthony Hopkins' Odin in the Thor movie exiles Thor for just beginning a battle with the ice giants. Odin likes war, and he enjoys starting conflicts. Moreover, the original Odin was more of a god to be feared and perplexed by than just a god to be loved. He was cruel and fickle, traded his left eye for magic, and was a high shaman known as a satyr, which in Norse society meant rejecting all male gender roles, which the Vikings did not care for at all. The Marvel Odin exchanged all of this for a nebulous but powerful ability called the Odin Force, which he can use to accomplish nearly any task required by a writer, but which also needs to be periodically recharged with the Odin Sleep, which is not by chance the ideal time for the villainous Loki of the comics to schedule the majority of his plots. And this sums up the video. If you enjoyed watching it, make sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Until then, stay mythically mad.